The next step in the FMEA process is to assess the residual risk. The residual risk is the risk that we have once a particular root cause has been mitigated. So let's look at our 3 prohibited state transitions here. Originally, the risk was at the highest, 5 for likelihood of existence. We have no reason to believe it doesn't. 5 for manifestation, it's a single point failure. 5 for controls, there are no controls to prohibit, at least this juncture, there's no controls to prohibit that transition. And 5 for detectability, there's no test cases for prohibited transitions. When people test software, they almost never test the negative cases. And our inputs show that there's no negative testing. So therefore, there's no evidence that prohibited transitions will be tested. Now let's assume that we mitigate this to remove the underlying fault, which would be many times it's global variables, things like that, logic bugs that allow them to happen, these prohibited transitions, that reduces existence down to mitigated. Manifestation doesn't change, it's still a single point failure. The controls, let's say we have controls to monitor the state transitions and to not allow them in the event that the code does happen to change the light the wrong way. If we do implement those controls, we now can reduce the control likelihood down to 1. And finally, if we implement a test procedure to explicitly test the prohibited transition, testing the allowed transitions does not count. We have to test the prohibited transitions and try to invoke them, either through a simulator or something like that that can do fault injection testing. Now, if we do that, our risk now, instead of being an average 5 for likelihood, it's now an average of 2 for likelihood. So 2 times 5 now gives us a risk product number of 10. So that's a substantially reduced risk compared to before it was 25, which is the maximum. All right, so now let's look at the critical items list. At any given time, we can export out the entire FMEA worksheet. We can exclude the items that are non-relevant. The software determines which root causes are not relevant based on the type of product. We can exclude those. We can also exclude failure modes that had a low severity from our report. We can also include certain hazards and not others. Maybe if we want just the collision hazards, we can filter for H1 there. One of the nice things is we can export the whole worksheet. We can export everything. We can go work offline with a multifunctional team who doesn't have the software. We can work offline. We can update the worksheet, and then we can import it back in. So let's take a look at that worksheet now. All right. All right, this is the entire FMEA worksheet from left to right. We can see every column. It has our hazards. It has the severities we defined. It has our states, and it has our interfaces all in one nice report. So we can take this report, we can email it to other people. The part that we want them to look at is right here, the effects. That's the part that the other experts can provide input on, and also potential corrective actions. What's the best way actually to mitigate this issue? The software will take care of everything else. They can also identify any existing controls maybe that other people might not be aware of. And so we can send that around, get edits on it, have meetings, and then we can import it back in. We should do a backup of our software before importing, just in case we import the wrong thing. We can import it back in, and it will be completely up to date. It will completely up to date everything. So every change we make will be up to date once we import. So that's one of the nice things about import-export. We also have the export software hazards analysis. So let me show you an example of that. This is an example where the hazards analysis report, instead of showing the entire FMEA worksheet, it shows you all the root causes that tag to each of the hazards. So you could see all of these tag to H1. You can see all the items that tag to H2, H3, etc. And it's in a nice safety report that's very handy for safety assessors. All right, there's one last feature we'll look at for the FMEA. The headers. The headers could be changed at any time. You could see our headers that we have there. Maybe your company doesn't assess the mission effect or the company effect. You could change those to something else. You can change these headers to whatever your international standard calls for. Any of these could be changed to whatever you want to change that column to. And when you save those customizations, then the header columns up here will be changed as well as in the report. All right, that wraps up our software FMEA tutorial.